Sometimes, my brothers and sisters, people of faith can worry when they sense that some doubts may have crept into their faith. They sense that their faith is not as strong as it used to be because they've had all these doubts that they never had in the past, and because of their doubts, prayer sometimes doesn't come as easy to them. They feel that they are no longer sometimes on the same wavelength as other people of faith, and they can start to compare their own faith unfavorably with the faith of others. Yet, my brothers and sisters, faith and doubt often come as companions. In fact, some of the church's greatest saints were at times plagued with times of doubt and suffered a great darkness of spirit. St. Therese of Lisieux comes to mind as one of many. More recent, some of the writings of St. Teresa of Calcutta have revealed that she went through times of great spiritual darkness and doubt. Thomas Merton, he was not a saint, but he was a Cistercian monk. He wrote many books that have been an inspiration to many people. He died over 50 years ago. In one of his books, he wrote, "Faith is not the suppression of doubt, it is the overcoming of doubt. And you overcome doubt by going through it. The person of faith who has never experienced doubt is not a person of faith." My brothers and sisters, it's quite normal on a journey of faith to pass through periods of doubt and skepticism. And we do that sometimes so that we can pass over into a deeper faith, a deeper certitude, a certitude which is not just human certitude, but a certitude of God from within us. And the gospel suggests that those closest to Jesus were no strangers to doubt themselves. Today's gospel reading from St. John, we have the greatest doubter of all, but we should also realize Thomas was not the only apostle that had doubts and fears. At the beginning of this gospel, they're all behind closed doors because they're all doubting. They're all having great fear at this moment. Thomas just didn't happen to be with them that first time that Jesus came. When the disciples sought, though, Thomas out after the risen Jesus had come to them, they went to Thomas with the wonderful news. They were trying to share the good news, the Easter gospel. "Thomas, we've seen him. We've seen the Lord." But Thomas, in his hurt, he could not bring himself to share their Easter faith and joy. He doubted what they said was even true. Thomas was a man, though, we recall, who was called by Jesus. He saw with his own eyes all the miracles that Jesus had performed. He was also by Jesus' side when he was opposed by religious leaders. He was arrested and eventually put to death. When it was all over, perhaps Thomas began to ask himself whether it had been worth it. Was there any meaning to these past 3 years he had spent following Jesus? Was it now over now that Jesus had been crucified? And for some reason, Thomas just could not bring himself at that moment to believe the incredible news that Jesus had actually risen from the dead. Perhaps his heart was just too broken. Perhaps he'd been through too many letdowns to allow himself to have that hope again. Despite his doubts, there's one thing that Thomas did get right, my brothers and sisters. He didn't leave the community of believers. He returned to the upper room where the apostles had been staying since the Last Supper. Even though he didn't believe what they believed, that Jesus had truly risen from the dead, he kept showing up. And Jesus eventually revealed himself to Thomas so that Thomas could put all of his doubts to rest and truly believe. Thomas had put a wall up, a block that stopped the good news from penetrating into his heart. He laid down very clear conditions before he would believe. He insisted on only seeing the risen Lord, but he wanted to put his fingers into the nail marks and put his hand into Jesus' side. Here was someone who wanted physical evidence before he would believe. He needed proof of a kind that would banish all doubt. Indeed, my brothers and sisters, it can be somewhat disconcerting for people of faith to come against that kind of attitude. They feel helpless before it. Especially parents who are people of faith encounter such an attitude in their own children that they raised in the faith. It can be especially distressing when people doubt. And my brothers and sisters, we can't force our faith. We can't force people to believe when they're in a place of doubt. No more than others can force faith on us when we are in that place. We need to be patient with people who have doubts, patient with people who cannot share our faith for whatever reason that may be. And we need to try to meet them where they are as best as we can. We need to learn to love them, no matter where they are in their faith journey. And this is exactly what we find Jesus doing in the gospel. When he appears again to the disciples, this time Thomas is present. And notice, my brothers and sisters, that Jesus doesn't reprimand Thomas for his refusal to believe. In fact, he meets Thomas in the place where Thomas is, in that place of honest doubt. And on top of that, Jesus meets the conditions that Thomas had laid. He invited Thomas, okay, Thomas, touch the wounds. Put your finger in the nail marks. Come, see. And he gently invites Thomas to move on from his doubt to faith. Don't be unbelieving anymore, but believe, Thomas. Indeed, my brothers and sisters, the risen Lord is constantly calling on all of us to go through our doubt and out beyond it into a rich and full Easter faith. He continues to call in that way even when there's no response forthcoming. Jesus is not going to give up on us. He didn't give up on Thomas. He's not going to give up on us. The response of Thomas to the call of the risen Lord is very striking. Out of the mouth of one of the greatest doubters comes one of the greatest confessions of faith in all the Gospels, my Lord and my God. It's a confession of faith that has resonated with believers ever since. It is often the case that those who have plumbed the depths of great religious doubt and skepticism many times emerge from that experience as people of unshakable faith. And certainly it happened to St. Thomas. St. Thomas was willing to preach the good news and witness with his very life. It's as if their faith has been honed and purified in that cauldron of doubt. Thomas joined the ranks of those who saw and believed. However, after Thomas's great profession of faith, Jesus goes on to pronounce another beatitude upon all those who believe without having seen the risen Lord in the way Thomas and the other disciples saw him. Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed. Jesus' beatitude embraces all future generations of believers, including all of us gathered here this day. We might be inclined to think that those to whom the risen Lord appeared to had more privilege. They were more privileged than we are. Yet Jesus' beatitude here hints that there's a greater blessedness. Rest upon those who believe without having seen in the way that they saw. The risen Lord is present to us in a real way, my brothers and sisters, as he was to those eyewitnesses, to the community of faith, through the Eucharist, through his word. Now, it is natural as human beings to have doubts at times. It is natural to question whether life has meaning sometimes, whether Jesus Christ is relevant. So many people in today's world claim to have other solutions to offer the problem of life than what Jesus offers. And so it can be tempting to look for another way, especially because faith in Jesus makes so many demands on us. When we believe, Jesus calls us, okay, now, go forth, proclaim the good news, live it in your lives. We know that Jesus is the way, he is the truth, he is the life. We cannot find ultimate meaning of our lives apart from him because we've been made in God's image. made in his likeness. Any other solution, any other way, will eventually leave us disappointed. Only Jesus offers us the meaning and the love that our hearts deep, deep down are truly aching for. St. Thomas shows us an important way to overcome our fears and our doubts. What St. Thomas does, those who doubt should follow his example. Thomas kept showing up. He kept praying. He kept reflecting on the Word of God. If we allow our fears and our doubts to hold us back, we will never overcome them. We will eventually become prisoners of them. But if we keep showing up, despite our fears and our doubts, Jesus, like he did for Thomas, will eventually reveal himself to us. He will let us know that he is real, his love is real, that he is truly raised from the dead, and that he wants to give us a life full of purpose, full of great meaning, full even of adventure. Every year on the second Sunday of Easter, we celebrate, my brothers and sisters, the divine mercy of God. God's mercy is simply his great love, unconditional love for sinners, for all of us. And the more sinful we are, the more he desires to welcome us back. There are no sins. There's nothing that we can do. There's no sins, there's no doubt, there's no fear that he cannot overcome. There's no sins he cannot forgive. There are no doubts that he cannot answer. There are no fears he cannot give us the strength to overcome. And so, my brothers and sisters, if you find yourself in that place, it's not comfortable to be in a place of doubting, or if you know of others who are in that place, encourage them to keep showing up. Keep turning to Jesus. Never give up. Eventually, it will all make sense, and we will find ourselves praying along with St. Thomas, my Lord and my God.